Welcome everybody to the Introduction to Extensive Reading Part 2 webinar for the Avenue project or the Learn IT to Teach project. I'm John Allan and
I'm Sepideh Alavi.
And we are here to piggyback on the first webinar where we introduced concepts of extensive reading, and we learned a bit from you, and we've been learning a little more and building more since we presented that webinar. So today we're going to go through a few things. It's not going to be challenging really cognitively, but we're going to take you through this so you understand where we're trying to take this research project and make it into a practical part of the Avenue offerings for our teachers and students. So first we're going to do a little summary of what happened with webinar 1. And then we're going to discuss several elements of the pilot project. On this, we'll be discussing dates, expectations, training, which is really not, it's very small, student accounts, numbers of students, and the application process. And then we're going to have two demonstrations. The first one is using the Xreading tool, which is a tool we've decided to go forward with. Sepideh is going to do a student perspective demo as a student going through to find a book and read a book. And then I will do the teacher perspective, which is quite important to you, setting up a class, setting up and registering students, and setting confines or boundaries for choices of reading materials. Then after that, we will be open for questions. If you could hold your questions to the end, that'd be lovely. Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through a very brief summary of our first webinar. As John already mentioned, the recording is available on our YouTube channel. You're most welcome to go and check it out over there. But just to set the stage for today, I'm going to go over a few basic concepts regarding extensive reading. Most importantly is the definition of the term or the terms extensive reading itself. It is an approach to language learning that encourages students to read a large amount of books, magazines, newspapers, articles, journals, whatever they're really into, and whatever is really interesting for them to read. So it's really important that these materials are not difficult, are not challenging. They can be read very quickly, and students will not need to be checking their dictionaries all the time or focusing on challenging structures in a text. So very famously, Day and Bamford have published this very helpful worksheet that somehow summarizes the 10 principles of extensive reading. So first of all, as I already mentioned, the material should be really easy for the learners. So no challenging materials can be used in an extensive reading program. There should be a variety of materials available for students. So each student can pick their own topic or genre. So if they're into sci-fi, if we can accommodate, we would like to add some sci-fi titles. If they are into literature, short stories, or information science, whatever, as far as we can, we would like them to have access to all these topics. Therefore, they will be able to choose what they want to read, and they will read as much as possible. And the purpose is usually reading for pleasure. So it's not some kind of extrinsic motivation coming from the teacher. It's something that comes from within, and reading becomes its own reward. So there's no need for any external grades or scores or anything that could somehow motivate them extrinsically. The reading speed should be really fast. Reading is individual and silent, and the reason is because students are picking their own materials. So it's even if the class time is shared for reading activities, still each student will have their own materials to read. And of course, it's reading silently. And teachers are there in the class not to go over the materials and analyze them, but only to guide the students to read better and more efficiently. And of course, the teacher should be a role model. So if someone is not really reading that much as a teacher, perhaps they should be reading a little bit more so they will be available to help their students as much as they can. It's over to you, John. You're muted, sorry.
I'm terrible at this. Okay, so we did discuss with you in the first seminar and webinar, and we have also talked to several of you outside of this venue about the benefits of extensive reading. So the first thing is we as readers want to foster a habit early, especially when we're talking about the literacy levels and the lower levels of LINC, getting them into the habit of reading in their second language. And also that might be built upon their first language reading habits. Maybe they already do this, or maybe encourage them to go back to their first language and develop and use that habit as well. Also, the students, because they choose their reading materials, they are quite motivated. I've seen this one when I used the M reader in my past, and I'm sure all of you know that if students get to choose their topic for writing activity or speaking activity, things go generally a lot better because they're motivated and more interested. More reading results in more learning for the students. Of course, the more you're exposed to just by picking up a book here and there, but if they're encouraged to read 3 or 4 books a month or every 2 weeks or something, the students actually will learn more vocabulary in their second language, and they will start identifying patterns in context. And also, I did notice when I was doing the extensive reading in my last few years, the students kept on bringing back up topics, like they would talk about Muhammad Ali. They'd bring examples up from the books they read, and it really enriched the classroom itself. Also, it will build up their reading speed and their fluency. There is a speed reader in the Xreading program. It's only in beta format, but that's something we might explore later on as we get deeper into this pilot.
Right, so we're going to go through 2 demonstrations of how a student and how a teacher is going to see the extensive reading program in their own course page. So I'm going to stop this share and show you how it will work if I logged in as a student. Okay, so can you see my screen? All right. Okay, so I logged in as Maria Guptes, one of our students, and this is her classroom. So in her courses, she can see the extensive reading pilot, and this is where she clicks. So in this pilot course, there is a lot of information going on. The students will not see this in the real course. All they will see is a link that you will share with them in your own course, and it's called Xreading course. So the other information is available to the teachers, but not all of it is available for students, other than a few help files and help videos. So students click here, and they are taken to the Xreading login page. For Maria, you will see that her username and password has already been used to log in. For your first-time students, they will have to add their own username and passwords that you have created in the Xreading platform yourself prior to starting the course. And John is going to show you how to do that after this demo, but I'm just going to let you know that once the students have their accounts and their accounts are activated, they just use that username and password and log into their course. What we recommend is to use their Avenue emails and passwords so they don't get mixed up during the transition from their Avenue course to Xreading. So they log in, and this is where they are taken to. So in this landing page, this is Maria Guptes's homepage. And you see there are several tabs over here. Please discourage your students to explore these tabs before they have enough knowledge of the first homepage, because I think it's going to confuse them, especially if they are literacy learners. it might not be really that necessary to get them involved in all the tabs until they have a solid knowledge of how the basics work. So the student lands here. This is the last book that the student has read, because Maria has been a student in this course for a few weeks. She has read quite a few books, but if a student just joined the program, they will not see this. It will be blank. What they will see, however, is when they scroll down, they will see active assignments. And although there's a lot of information here, all they need to do is to click on Add Book. So before I do that, I'll just go over the information a little bit, because Add Book brings a new book for the students to read. But here you have added books from before, which is 6. So after this demo, this number is going to change, and I really want to emphasize it right now. So far, the student has read 6 books and only passed 1 of them. And this pass or fail really depends on the quiz that they take, and we'll talk about that later. But anyway, so they have 6 added books so far, and they now want to add another book. So they click on this green button over here, and the library takes a few seconds to load, sometimes a little bit longer. And longer. Okay, there we are. So on this page, the student is able to see only the books that you have selected for them to see. So if a book is really over their level, more difficult than they currently are, or too much easier for them, then they won't be able to see it. So that's the beauty of this system. When we talk about like less challenging materials to read, this is really easily set by the teacher. So if your student is level 4, they do not need to see books which are level 4, 5, 6, and on, because they will be challenging and difficult and probably not very pleasant to read. So this particular student is set at a level 4, and these are the books at level 4 that she is able to see. So if you take a look here at the left side, you will see the publisher series. The teacher has selected Grassroots Press, and there are 46 titles for this student to see. And the reason that our teacher has selected Grassroots Press is because they are a Canadian company, they have Canadian content, and their content is very much useful for LINC classes. So there are several other publications out there, Oxford, Cambridge, Macmillan, other publishers, but this is what we chose because we wanted the students to read Canadian content. So the levels of these 46 books are at level 4, and we'll talk about these later. There's also a help file on these levels. The levels do not necessarily align with CLB levels. They have a different leveling system, so we can ignore this for now. And we move down to genres. So that's what we were talking about when the student chooses what they are interested in. So these publications, this publication, Grassroots, has different genres for books about animals, human interests and drama, humor, nonfiction, romance, and self-improvement. And in front of each genre, you can see a number that indicates the number of titles available for each genre. So let's say that Maria is interested to read about animals. She ticks here, and then the results of this page are filtered. She will only see the 4 books that are about animals. She doesn't need to scroll down through the whole 48 title list of books that are available to her to read, unless she wants to. That's a different story. So she has 4 books here. If she wants to get more information about any of them, she can click on this little more info button. So there is some information already about like how long the book is, what level it is, what genre it is, and whatnot. But clicking here is also useful for the teachers, to be honest, because it shows important information for teachers as well. And this information includes, a preview of the text, of the chapters, the new vocabulary that they might face in the book, the graphics, characters, and so on and so forth. So they can click on each of these and they will see a summary of the information in the book. So this book is about bald eagles. There are no characters. That's why this page is kind of blank, but you will see more characters if it's a work of literature. So once they read this information, if they're interested, they can go back to the library and they can choose to read the book. They click here on Read Now. They see a pop-up and they click on Start Reading. So it takes a little time for the book to load. And once they have the title page, they scroll down and they click on Next. And you see that there's a lot of pictures because these are for literacy level learners. We have a large font and typeface. And there are lots of visuals, little to read, which makes it pretty easy. And so they can take their time. There's not that there's no time limit, but again, it's up to the teacher to set. So if you feel like 5 minutes is enough, you can set it to 5. If you think more or less time is enough, then you can set that as well. So they keep scrolling down until they read the whole book. And once they come to the bottom of the page, sorry, it's a long book. So they click on Next when they finish reading. Some information like copyright information, they click Next. And then more book information, acknowledgements, they scroll down and they click Close. And so they are taken back to their Home tab. So this is the most recent book that they have read. If they are confident that they have learned everything about the book and they have full comprehension, they can click on Return. If not, they can click on Read Again, and the same process is going to be repeated. So let's imagine that Maria has read the book carefully and she is confident about her information. She clicks here on Return the book. She has to do that, and then she can take the quiz. Before returning, the quiz will not be active. So she returns the book. She can still read it again if she's not confident enough, but then if she is, she can take the quiz. So she clicks here to take the quiz and start the quiz. And from here on, I'm sure it's going to look very familiar to you. It's just like Moodle, like it looks like a Moodle quiz. So they read the questions. I'm just going to click these randomly. I didn't really read the book myself. So there are 5 questions for each book. And the questions are supposed to be very general, very easy, and not about the details of the text, because more details means more analytical reading of the passage, and that's not something we want. Just general information of like how much they comprehended the general idea of the book. So once they answer all the 5 questions, they click on Finish Quiz. And if they want to, they can rate the book. They can click here. And they can like or dislike the book if they want. They can decide if it was too easy or too difficult or anywhere in between. And they can also type a book review. And this is really helpful for other students who want to choose the book. They can see the other students' reviews and see if they really like to read the book or not. So once this is done, they can submit it, but it's optional. They don't really need to do that. If they don't want to submit anything, they just say no thanks. But if they want to, they will click on Submit. So the page refreshes again, and it's the same book. It's the date and the number of words read, the status, last date that was accessed, and this is the most important part, that they failed. So that's what happens when, yeah, when they answer questions randomly, it doesn't get any better. Right, but if you go back to the bottom, you will see that the added books that used to be 6 is now 7, which means that this person has already read 7 books. And their quiz average was 60%, but sadly now it's down to 40%. Yeah, so that's basically what the student will see. They can continue the same thing until they have met the requirements of the course. Maybe you want them to read 10 books per course, or maybe you want them to read 2,000 words. So you can either choose to have a word count or a book count as their cutoff point. So I'll stop here. As I mentioned, there's a lot more information here for the students, but we really don't need to go into the details until there's some level of mastery of the system. And after that, then they can explore and see what the other tabs are showing. So I'm going to stop my share here. And it's over to you, John.
Okay, everybody. I guess the most important part of this session would be really for you, the teachers who would be using this interface. After the last 2 years, I think learning a new technology wouldn't be as challenging as it was in March of 2020. So we've set up this course, a short course in Avenue. It's called Extensive Reading Pilot. So the folks who will be in the pilot would join this course as students. And we have certain elements here. And the training for the actual course is here. It's quite short. And at the end of it, we have a 10-point Moodle quiz that you pass, and then we give you your credentials and you start moving forward. Sepideh and I will also be available to assist you if there are any issues. We will go through, we'll have a discussion here. We can discuss here, and we have the link here that you can copy into your own course. So you can send your students off from your course and you can go to Xreading from your course. We have made some help files to make your life a little easier. The course setup one, I think, is 16 pages at this time. But we've broken these down into 3 videos so that adding your course is a small video, adding a student is another small video, and adding an assignment is another small video. So we've kind of made this hopefully simple for you to use. And then this this video here, student startup video, and we have a student startup how-to document. You can put those in your course and share them with your students if you wish as well. So we've already got resources ready for you to work forward on the pilot. So at this time, I'm going to imagine that I am Jasmine Devi. This is my experience as a teacher. Okay, so Jasmine's already been in here. She's made some courses, and she already has an account. Okay, at this time, if you look across the top, we have lots of tabs. The 3 that we're going to talk about today are classes, students, and assignments. Classes, of course, because you're going to set up your own class for you and your students. And as you can see down here, there's a whole series here already set up for different teachers. Lots of stats in here, and we'll be going through that as we go. So the first thing you're going to do is, under classes, you're going to add a class, and there's a how-to on this. So you're going to add a class. At this point, because we're in a pilot, you would just click on add a single class. If this option here, add a batch of classes, is maybe if you are a supervisor or a coordinator in a center, you might want to set up all of your classes with Xreading, and so you do it using a spreadsheet or a comma delimited CSV file. So at this point, you're going to be clicking on a add single class. And then, of course, just basic things like, okay, so this is Jasmine. Okay, Jasmine, 2022 evenings. I don't know, something like that. So this is her evening class. It's starting today. It's going to end, say, on June 20th. Okay, and then you pick a term. So it's going to be winter 2022. And I add the class. And where are we here? There we are. So Jasmine 22 evenings. There's an enrollment code here. We're not going to use that with your students yet, but if you want to get more independent in the future, that's a really good feature. Okay, so the class is made. That was pretty simple. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the Students tab. And with the students, you have two options. One thing you have to understand is that we do not own Xreading, the actual super administration. So it's basically what happens is we get your student names, or you enter them, and we take those names and we apply to the Xreading administration to like confirm the registration. Okay, that's correct, right, Sepideh? Yeah, so it's a two-step process, but you set it up here in the front end here, and then we at Learn IT to Teach, or not we, but somebody at Learn IT to Teach will be paying for this, for your license. So we'll take that and send that off on your behalf. And within a day or so, they're pretty quick, your students will have full access. Okay, so at this point here, you can add a student. And if you want to add a new fresh student with your data that you have, that's fine. You can add a single student. You won't be having enough students at this time to add a batch of students. If you have 20 students, we will have to put a little help file up to show you how to make a quick Excel CSV file. But at this point, you'll be really looking at add a single student. If the student already exists in the system, you'd click on add a single student down here. And then that way you would just check in. So if I click on add a single student here you would put in the data for your students here. Family name, given name, the display name, student ID number is optional. And then here you would choose your class. And then their email and password. So similar to what you've been doing already with Learn or Avenue. Okay, so I'm going to go back and add a student who's already been here, who's already registered. And the student who I want, let's see, Charlie Furzan. Why not? Let's see if Charlie Furzan is available. Yep, there he is. So he's already been put in by us and confirmed by the system. So we might, Sepideh, we might actually do that, right? With the students, we might solicit the names from the teachers for the pilot and pre-register them and get them confirmed before they move forward. We might do that, right?
Yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah, okay. Depends on how busy we are, right? You know,
True.
on Monday, my bowling league returns, so I'd be bowling every day. Okay.
No time for registration then.
No, but I think that would be a nice thing for us to do. And then you get the details here. And then all you have to do is you find your student and you find your class, you click here. If you want them to see a notification, you tick this off. But if you click on add, in your class, Charlie Furzan is now in my class. Jasmine 2022 evenings. And I'll just quickly add another person. Lee. And I will add that also to Jasmine. Okay, and then if I go back to the classes tab, Jasmine 2022 evenings, the students are there. So registering your students is quite straightforward. And then all of your stats can be right here for us to look at and for you to keep track of your students as well. So that's classes and students. And then the third thing is you saw with Sepideh's demonstration, what we want to do, especially for the pilot, we want to make sure that the students are sort of reading in within some at the predefined zone level and through a specific publisher, the Canadian publisher. So what we want to do here is we set up this set of restrictions through the Add Assignments button. And you first choose your class. And this goes on. So there's a lot of options here for you. We're really interested to see if we'd like you to stick in the pilot to the settings we had, but we have recommended, but we also want to really know, what do you think would be better? Are there things that you suggest that might work better? Okay, so we're going to restrict books by a student's reading level. Yes, we are, because we're aiming at literacy at this point. Levels available above the student's reading level are one level above are available. We want that to be set to 0 because we want to keep the reading easy. And we want to restrict it to level 4. So we're going to say they can't even access books below that level. And there's a bunch of reasons why we did that, because some of the books below, for some reason, are slightly more complicated than the ones above. So, okay, allow the students to take the books after the assignment closes. Yes, no, it doesn't really matter because after July they might not have access. But you can say yes or no here. Take quizzes after the assignment closes. Yes or no, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. Allow maximum active books per student. 1 or 2. Sorry, Sepideh. The active books, that means the ones they've checked out or no?
Yeah, the ones that they've read, but they haven't passed the quiz for yet.
Right. So
or they haven't checked out.
Yeah, I think we might want to limit that once the program gets going, but we haven't used it yet because we've only been playing around with just the 2 of us. So maybe you might want to set some restrictions there if you have a large class. Pre-reading vocabulary, that's not a solid activity yet. Here we want you to check off text and audio accessibility. We want you to check allow text only, no audio at this point, because we just want them reading the text. Okay. If you have an inactivity timer, you can set it to what you want because they'll be reading this on the device. You don't want them having this book checked out and they're not doing anything for an hour or so. So the limits are quite small, and that kind of limits their speed of reading as well. Allow more than one student to check out the same book. Yes, of course. Allow students to check a book that they've taken up before. Our setting would be no. And so you'll see that there's many of these settings. The quiz settings, use Xreading quizzes only. Set the questions in random order because they can possibly talk to each other and say A, C, A, D. Quiz timer, we have it set to 5 minutes. Passing score, 60%. That's debatable, I guess. The book types we're going to use are only digital. Allow books with no Xreading quizzes. There's no point because we need to have the quiz to see if they've read the book and how they've taken in the information. So we say no. And we're not going to talk about the journal settings here. The big one here is the library access setting. We're going to go here to the specific titles or publisher here. So we're going to limit the access by publisher by clicking on here. More information will appear. And so you see the books are already lined up out here. So we are really interested in the grassroots press publications. And as you can see, there's 46 that are appropriate for us. And you saw these with Sepideh's example. There's the bald eagles that we failed. I could have told you at the end, those hunters are trouble. Sorry, at the beginning. So at this point here, we've made our settings combined. We can call the assignment a name. You can give it a name. So Jasmine nighttime, night reads, something like that. And then you can open the date and you can close it, say in June. And you're set to go. And then here we can click on add assignment and it should attach to your class. Unless I've made a mistake somewhere along the way here. Oh, sorry. January 22. Close date should be before class close. Oh, the class close date. So I can't remember what I put the class close date, June 20th. Yeah, so this would be say June 17th. Pardon me. Well, it caught me. That's good. It's good to know that it works. And so with your class, you have your class is associated with Jamine night reads. So when your students arrive into Xreading, they are limited to those options. Okay, and that's about it. I will log Jasmine out. Okay. Sepideh, can you share, can I unshare my screen so you can share your screen?
Sure, I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
So are you seeing it or not yet?
I see you.
All right, let's try again. So you should be able to see the presentation now. Okay, can you see that, the pilot project?
Yes.
So this is the timeline that we have set for some of the activities that need to be completed during the pilot project. So we will open the application form today, and it will be open until February 3rd, and maybe a little bit sooner than that. And then we will notify the volunteers who are capable, because of their students and because of the levels that they're teaching, of participating in the pilot project. And then the teacher's self-directed training will happen between February 5th and the 13th. We will set up the classrooms after February 14th until the 17th. We will have an online Q&A session on February 18th for about an hour or so we can troubleshoot any issues that you come across, or if there's any question that you had during the setup of your course, we can address them. And your students should be able to start by February 21st, and the course will end on June 30th. Yep, so that brings us to the end of this presentation. If you have any questions about any of the content of the webinar, please feel free to ask.
I've added the link to the Google form. If you're interested in the chat window, if you're interested in participating in the pilot, we encourage you to please fill out the form.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, Carmita.
Yes, you said this is for literacy learners, so it's only for the people who teach the lower levels, right? So it's not for the higher levels currently, the pilot project.
Yes, for the time being, it's going to be for literacy learners. Hopefully, if the results of the research turn out well, we will expand to other learners as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. When you say literacy, do you mean level 0 specifically or level 1 specifically? What levels of literacy are you looking for?
So that really depends on the class. Obviously, foundations will not be able to read this because it's still difficult for them. There's more vocabulary, which is not really that familiar or very frequent. So I'm guessing around a 2L or 3L or higher would be appropriate, but it really depends on your students. If they're not really that foundation, then they might be able to use the system as well. You can go over the books. As a teacher, you will have access to the books. You can take a look at them. If there's something that you think your students are able to deal with, then you can let them read it. But if it's more difficult, perhaps you can eliminate a particular title or ask them not to read it. Any other questions?
John, I noticed that you added in the books about the animals from the Grassroots Press, but what about the Grassroots biographies? And there were some other choices there for Grassroots.
Sorry. The options that I chose, I think, included all the grassroots areas, all the grassroots books.
You can limit them if you want to one particular topic, I mean, one series. I'm not sure if the biographies are level 4 though. I recall reading a few of them before, and they're a little bit more difficult than the other series. But I can just take a quick look at that and see if... And you can also add different publications, but we really do not encourage that at this point because, like what John said, if you choose a level 1 book, we had a really thorough look at all the books available, and the level 1 is not really that much level 1. Maybe it's level 1 for a kid in kindergarten that has, because they're dealing with a lot more people and in their classes, they're learning stuff. So first of all, the topic is not appropriate for adults. And then the vocabulary is something that a younger child might be familiar with, but not necessarily useful for an adult. That's why we didn't start from level 1. And another thing with level 1 is because, again, they are somehow designed for kids, there's a lot of text. And we don't really want that for literacy levels. We just want to keep the text minimal, and large. You know, we want the fonts to be large and to stand out. So the reading will be less challenging for them. But once you register and you sign in the pilot course, you'll be able to experiment these and see for yourself. So even a level 1 book from Oxford University Press might be too difficult for our literacy students.